So this morning there's two short parshas. We start in Parashah Nitzavim, and we join with the Israelites in camp there to listen to Moshe again as he gives words of history, words of instruction, words of encouragement, words of prophecy to the people before they go over into the promised land. Today you are standing, all of you, before Yahweh your God, your heads, your tribes, your leaders, and your officers, all the men of Israel, along with your little ones, your wives, and your foreigners here with you in your camp, from the one who chops your wood to the one who draws your water. The purpose is that you should enter into the covenant of Adonai with your God, and into his oath, which Adonai your God is making with you today, so that he can establish you today for himself as a people, and so that for you he will be God, as he said to you and as he swore to your ancestors, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. But I am not making this covenant and this oath with only you. Rather, I am making it both with him who is standing here with us today before Yahweh, our God, and also with him who is not here with us today. For you know how we lived in the land of Egypt and how we came directly through the nations you passed through. And you saw their detestable things and their idols of wood, stone, silver, and gold that they had with them. So let there not be among you a man, woman, family, or tribe whose heart turns away today from Yahweh your God, our God, to go and serve the gods of those nations. Let there not be among you a root bearing such bitter poison and wormwood. If there is such a person, when he hears the words of this curse, he will bless himself secretly, saying to himself, I will be all right, even though I will stubbornly keep doing whatever I feel like doing, so that I, although dry, sinful, will be added to the watered, righteous. But Adonai will not forgive him. Rather, the anger and jealousy of Jehovah will blaze up against him, that person. Every curse written in this book will be upon him. Yahweh will blot out his name from under heaven. Yahweh will single him out from all the tribes of Israel to experience what is bad in all the curses of the covenant written in this book of the Torah. When the next generation, your children who will grow up after you, and the foreigner who arrives from a distant land, see the plagues that the land and the diseases which Yahweh has made sick, and that the whole land has become burning sulfur and salt, and it isn't being sown or bearing crops or even producing grass, like the overthrow of Sodom, Morah, Admah, and Spoyim, which Yahweh overthrew in his furious anger. Then all the nations will ask, why did Yahweh do this to this land? What is the meaning of such frenzied, furious anger? People will answer, it's because they abandoned the covenant of Jehovah, the God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them out of the land of Egypt. They went and served other gods, prostrating themselves before them, gods they had not known and which he had not assigned to them. For this reason, the anger of Yahweh blazed up against the land and brought upon it every curse written in this book. And Yahweh, in anger, fury, and incensed with indignation, uprooted them from their land and threw them out into another land, as it is today. Things which are hidden belong to Jehovah, our God, but the things that have been revealed belong to us and our children forever, so that we can observe all the words of this Torah. When the time arrives that all things have come upon you, both the blessing and the curse which I have presented to you, and you are there among the nations to which Yahweh your God has driven you, then at last you will start thinking about what has happened to you, and you will return to Yahweh your God to pay attention to what he has said, which will be exactly what I am ordering you to do today. You and your children with all your heart and with all your being. At that point, Jehovah your God will reverse your exile and show you mercy. He will return and gather you from all the peoples to which Yahweh your God scattered you. If one of yours was scattered to the far end of the sky, Yahweh your God will gather you even from there. He will go there and get you. Yahweh your God will bring you back into the land your ancestors possessed, and you will possess it. He will make you prosper there, and you will become even more numerous than your ancestors. Then Adonai your God will circumcise your hearts and the hearts of your children, so that you will love Adonai your God with all your heart and all your being, and thus you will live. Adonai your God will put all these curses on your enemies, on those who hated and persecuted you. But you will return and pay attention to what Yahweh says, and obey all his mitzvot, which I am giving you today. Then Yahweh your God will give you more than enough in everything you set out to do. The fruit of your body, the fruit of your livestock, the fruit of your land will all do well. For Yahweh will once again rejoice to see you do well, just as he rejoiced in your ancestors. However, all this will happen only if you pay attention to what Yahweh your God says, so that you obey his mitzvot and regulations, which are written in this book of the Torah. If you turn to Yahweh your God with all your heart and all your being, for this mitzvah, which I am giving you today, is not too hard for you. It is not beyond your reach. It isn't in the sky, so that you need to ask, who will go up into the sky for us? Bring it to us and make us hear it so that we can obey it. Likewise, it isn't beyond the sea, so that you need to ask, who will cross the sea for us? Bring it to us and make us hear it so that we can obey it. On the contrary, the word is very close to you, in your mouth, even in your heart. Therefore, you can do it. Look, I am presenting you today with, on one hand, life and good, and on the other, death and evil, in that I am ordering you today to love Adonai your God, to follow his ways, and to obey his mitzvot, regulations, and rulings. For if you do, you will live and increase your numbers, and Jehovah your God will bless you in the land you are entering in order to take possession of it. But if your heart turns away, if you refuse to listen, if you are drawn away to prostrate yourselves before the gods and serve other gods and serve them, I am announcing to you today that you will certainly perish. You will not live long in the land you are crossing Jordan to enter and take possession. I call on heaven and earth and witness against you today that I have presented you with life and death, the blessing and the curse. Therefore, choose life so that you will live, and you and your descendants, loving Yahweh your God, paying attention to what he says, and clinging to him, for that is the purpose of your life. On this depends the length of time you will live in the land Yahweh swore he would give to your ancestors, Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Parashah Vayelech, he went. Moshe went and spoke the following words to all Israel. I am 120 years old today. I can't get around any longer. Moreover, Adonai has said to me, you will not cross this Jordan. Jehovah your God, he will cross over ahead of you. He will destroy these nations ahead of you, and you will dispossess them. Yehoshua, he will cross over ahead of you, as Adonai has said. Yahweh will do to them what he did to Sichon and Og, the kings of the Amorite, and to their land. He destroyed them. Yahweh will defeat them ahead of you, and you are to do to them just as I have ordered you to do. Be strong, be bold, don't be afraid or frightened of them, for Yahweh your God is going with you. He will never fail you nor abandon you. Next Moshe summoned Yehoshua in the sight of all Israel and said to him, be strong, be bold, for you are going with the people into the land Yahweh swore to their ancestors he would give them. You will be the one causing them to inherit it, But Adonai, it is he who will go ahead of you. He will be with you. He will neither fail you nor abandon you. So don't be afraid or downhearted. Then Moshe wrote down this Torah and gave it to the Kohanim, the descendants of Levi, who carried the Ark of the Covenant of Adonai, and to all the leaders of Israel. Moshe gave them these orders. At the end of every 7 years, during the festival of Sukkot, in the year of Shemitah, when all Israel has come to appear in the presence of Adonai at the place he will choose, you are to read this Torah before all Israel so that they can hear it. Assemble the people, the men, the women, the little ones, the foreigners you have in your towns, so that they can learn, fear God, Adonai your God, and take care to obey all the words of this Torah, and so that their children who have not known can hear and learn to fear Yahweh your God for as long as you live in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. Yahweh said to Moshe, the time is coming for you to die. Summon Yehoshua and present yourselves in the tent of meeting so that I can commission him. Moshe and Yehoshua went and presented themselves in the tent of meeting. Adonai appeared in the tent in a column of cloud. The column of cloud stood above the entrance to the tent. Yahweh said to Moshe, you are about to sleep with your ancestors, but this people will get up and offer themselves as prostitutes to the foreign gods of the lands where they are going. When they are with those gods, they will abandon me and break my covenant, which I have made with them. Then my anger will flare up, and I will abandon them and will hide my face from them. They will be devoured, and many calamities and troubles will come upon them. Then they will ask, haven't these calamities come upon us because our God isn't with us? But I will be hiding my face from them because all evil they had done in turning to other gods. Therefore, write this song for yourselves and teach it to the people of Israel. Have them learn it by heart so that this song can be a witness for me against the people of Israel. For when I have brought them into the land I swore to their ancestors, flowing with milk and honey, and they have eaten their fill, grown fat, and turned to other gods, serving them and despising me, and broken my covenant, then after many calamities and troubles have come upon them, this song will testify before them as a witness, because their descendants will be reciting it and will not have forgotten it. For I know how they think even now, even before I have brought them into the land about which I swore. So Moshe wrote this song that same day and taught it to the people of Israel. Yahweh also commissioned Yehoshua the son of Nun with these words, be strong, be full of courage, for you are to bring the people of Israel into the land about which I swore to them, and I will be with you. Moshe kept writing the words of this Torah in the book until he was done. When he had finished, Moshe gave these orders to the Leviim who carried the ark with the covenant of Yahweh. Take this book of the Torah and put it next to the ark with the covenant of Yahweh your God, so that it can be a witness against you. For I know how rebellious and stiff-necked you are. Here, even while I am still alive with you today, you have rebelled against Yahweh, so how much more will you do after my death? Assemble for me all the leaders of your tribes and your officials, so that I can say these things in their hearing, calling heaven and earth to witness against them. Because I know that after my death you will become very corrupt and turn aside from the way that I have ordered you, and that disaster will come upon you in the Acharik Hayamim, because you will do what Yahweh sees as evil and provoke him by your deeds. Then Moshe spoke in the hearing of the whole assembly of Israel the words of this song, from beginning to end. Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So I'm going to read a few scriptures from the Torah portion that will lead me into my topic today. Albert already read this, but I want to read it again just as a launching pad for what we're going to talk about today. All right, I'm going to start with Deuteronomy 31, and I'm going to read the first 8 verses. Like I said, Albert's already read this, but this is going to be my jumping off point for what my topic is going to be about today. So Deuteronomy 31, beginning in verse 1, and we're going to read through verse 8. Then Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel, and he said to them, I am 120 years old today. I can no longer go out and come in. Also, Yehovah has said to me, you shall not cross over the Jordan. Yehovah your God himself crosses over before you. He will destroy these nations from before you, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua himself crosses over before you, just as Yehovah has said. And Yehovah will do to them as he did to Sihon and Og, the kings of the Amorites, and their land, when he destroyed them. Yehovah will give them over to you, that you may do to them according to every commandment which I have commanded you. Be strong and of good courage. Do not fear, nor be afraid of them. For Yehovah your God, he is the one who goes with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Then Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of good courage, for you must go with this people to the land which Yehovah has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall cause them to inherit it. And Yehovah, he is the one who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Do not fear nor be dismayed. The reason I wanted to read that portion there is because that's talking about Joshua. And in about 4 weeks, maybe less, I don't know, but we're coming to the end of the Torah cycle. And when we come to the end of the Torah cycle, we come to the end of Deuteronomy, right at the time of Sukkot, Feast of Sukkot. And then we roll the scroll back, as they say, or we turn the pages back, and we start over again in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. So we go from Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, and we stop there in the last verse of Deuteronomy, and we turn the scriptures back and we go over it again. So every year we talk a lot about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, the children of Israel. But today, instead of taking that page and turning back, I would like to go forward, because I want to talk a little bit about Joshua. We don't spend very much time talking about Joshua. As, like I said, we come to the end of Deuteronomy and we turn the book back to Genesis. We start over again. Nothing wrong with that. That's a good tradition. Torah is the foundation. But Joshua actually was called a servant of the Lord, a servant of Yehovah. And that is important. I'm going to get to that in the course of my message today. Joshua is first mentioned in Exodus 24. Let's take a look at where the first mention of Joshua is. Exodus 24, and we're going to read 12 and 13. First mention of Joshua. Exodus 24, verse 12. Then Yehovah said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and be there, and I will give you tablets of stone, and the law and commandments which I have written, that you may teach them. So Moses arose with his assistant Joshua, and Moses went up to the mountain of God. So Joshua is introduced to us for the first time as an assistant to Moses. Now let's turn over to Exodus 32. Now the context of Exodus 32 is this. Moses took his assistant Joshua with him as he went up Mount Sinai to receive the stone tablets containing the commandments written by the very finger of God. Joshua remained a little lower on the mountain while Moses ascended to the summit. And while they were on the mountain, the children of Israel had made a golden calf to worship. So that's the context of Exodus 32, beginning in verse 15. Moses turned and went down from the mountain, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides. On the one side and on the other they were written. Now the tablets were the work of God, and the writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. And when Joshua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, he said to Moses, "There is a noise of war in the camp." So Joshua was the first one actually to hear this ruckus that was going down at the bottom of the mountain. Turn over to Exodus 33. Let's read a little bit more about Joshua. Exodus 33, verse 7. Moses took his tent and pitched it outside the camp, far from the camp, and called it the tabernacle of meeting. And it came to pass that everyone who sought Jehovah went out to the tabernacle of meeting, which was outside the camp. So it was, whenever Moses went out to the tabernacle, that all the people rose, and each man stood at the tent door and watched Moses until he had gone into the tabernacle. And it came to pass when Moses entered the tabernacle that the pillar of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tabernacle, and Jehovah talked with Moses. All the people saw the pillar of cloud standing at the tabernacle door, and all the people rose and worshiped, each man in his tent door. So Jehovah spoke to Moses face to face, as a man speaks to his friend. And he went, and he would return to the camp, but his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a young man, did not depart from the tabernacle. So every time that Moses would go out to this tent of meeting, he would be there and he would talk with God, and Joshua was with him. But when Moses would go back into the camp, Joshua remained behind. Not only was he the assistant to Moses, but he also basically was the guard of the tent of meeting. When Moses was not there, Joshua was there, and he was watching it. We all know the story about Joshua and him being the spy when they went into the land to take a look at what was there before they crossed over into the land. So let's read a little bit about that in Numbers chapter 13. The spy episode. Joshua 13, we're going to read the first 3 verses, and I'm going to skip down a little bit. So Numbers 13, verse 1. And Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, "Send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the children of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers you shall send a man, every one a leader among them." So Moses sent them from the wilderness of Paran, according to the command of Jehovah, all of them men who were heads of the children of Israel. So leaders were chosen from each tribe. Now let's drop down to verse 8. And from the tribe of Ephraim, Hoshea, the son of Nun, was chosen. Verse 16. These are the names of the men who Moses sent to spy out the land. And Moses called Hoshea, the son of Nun, Joshua, or in Hebrew it would be Yehoshua. So Moses was the one actually that changed his name from Hoshea to Yehoshua. He was one of the ones that were chosen to be the spies. Now let's drop down to verse 27. And we'll read the remainder of that chapter and then on into chapter 14. Then they told him and said, "We went to the land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit." So the spies are bringing back the fruit from the land, and it is awesome. It's like their eyes bugged out when they saw the fruit that they brought back from the land. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the banks of the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it." But the men who had gone up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, "The land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature, giants. There we saw the giants, the descendants of Anak, came from the giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight." Chapter 14. Then all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron. And the whole congregation said to them, "If only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we had died in the wilderness. Why has Jehovah brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt?" So they said to one another, "Let us select a leader and return to Egypt." Then Moses and Aaron fell on their faces before all the assembly of the congregation of the children of Israel. And Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. And they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, "The land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If Jehovah delights in us, then he will bring us into this land and give it to us, a land which flows with milk and honey. Only do not rebel against Jehovah, nor fear the people of the land, for they are our bread. Their protection has departed from them, and Jehovah is with us. Do not fear them." And all the congregation said to stone them with stones. Now the glory of Jehovah appeared in the tabernacle of meeting before all the children of Israel. I'm going to drop down to verse 26. Then Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, "How long shall I bear with this evil congregation who murmur against me? I have heard the murmurings which the children of Israel murmur against me. Say to them, as I live, says Jehovah, just as you have spoken in my hearing, so I will do to you. The carcasses of you who have murmured against me shall fall in the wilderness. All of you who were numbered according to your entire number, from 20 years old and above, except for Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua, the son of Nun. You shall by no means enter the land which I swore I would make you dwell in. But your little ones, whom you said would be victims, I will bring in, and they shall know the land which you have despised. But as for you, your carcasses shall fall in the wilderness, and your sons shall be shepherds in the wilderness 40 years, and bear the brunt of your infidelity until your carcasses are consumed in the wilderness, according to the number of the days in which you spied out the land, 40 days. For each day you shall bear your guilt 1 year, namely 40 years, and you shall know my rejection. I, Jehovah, have spoken this. I will surely do so to all this evil generation or congregation who are gathered together against me. And this wilderness shall be in this wilderness they shall be consumed, and there they shall die. And the men whom Moses sent to spy out the land, who returned and made all the congregation murmur against him by bringing a bad report of the land, those very men who brought the evil report about the land died by the plague before Jehovah. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, remained alive, of the men who went to spy out the land. So this shows the character, I think, of Joshua and Caleb. But Joshua was still a young man at this time. He was still an assistant to Moses. He was one of the leaders of the tribe, and he was sent in with the others to spy out the land. Of all those that came to spy out the land, it was only Joshua and Caleb that stood up and said, we can do this. God is on our side. And you remember when we were reading back in Exodus, where God told the people, be of good courage, fear not, I am with you. Joshua remembered that. He knew God was with them. And if God says, I'm going to give you that land, he believed him, and he went forward. Now let's read about Joshua as second in command. He gets promoted. So in Numbers chapter 27, we're going to read verses 12 through the end of the chapter. Numbers 27, beginning in verse 12. Now Yehovah said to Moses, go up into Mount Abarim and see the land which I have given to the children of Israel. And when you have seen it, you also shall be gathered to your people. He's talking to Moses, as Aaron your brother was gathered. For in the wilderness of Zin, during the strife of the congregation, you rebelled against my command to hallow me at the waters before their eyes. These are the waters of Meribah at Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin. Then Moses spoke to Yehovah, saying, let Yehovah, the God of the spirits of all flesh, set a man before the congregation. You may go out before them and go in before them. You may lead them out and bring them in, that the congregation of Yehovah may not be like sheep which have no shepherd. And Yehovah said to Moses, take Joshua, the son of Nun, with you, a man in whom is the Spirit, and lay your hand on him. Set him before Eleazar, the priest, and before all the congregation, and inaugurate him in their sight. And you shall give some of your authority to him, that all the congregation of the children of Israel may be obedient. He shall stand before Eleazar, the priest, who shall inquire before Yehovah for him by the judgment of the Urim. At his word they shall go out. At his word they shall come in, both he and all the children of Israel with him, all the congregation. So Moses did as Yehovah commanded him. He took Joshua and set him before Eleazar the priest and before all the congregation. And he laid his hands on him and inaugurated him, just as Yehovah commanded by the hand of Moses. Let's turn over to Deuteronomy chapter 3. Beginning in verse 23. Then I pleaded with Yehovah at that time, saying, O Lord God, you have begun to show your servant your greatness and your mighty hand, for what God is there in heaven or on earth who can do anything like your works and your mighty hands. In other words, what God is there besides you? Well, there is no other. I pray, let me cross over and see the good land beyond the Jordan, those pleasant mountains and Lebanon. But Yehovah was angry with me on your account and would not listen to me. So Yehovah said to me, enough of that. Speak no more to me of this matter. Go up to the top of Pisgah and lift your eyes toward the west, the north, the south, and the east. Behold it with your eyes, for you shall not cross over this Jordan. But command Joshua and encourage him and strengthen him, for he shall go over before this people, and he shall cause them to inherit the land which you see. So here the authority is being passed now from Moses to Joshua. Moses obviously was not allowed to enter into the land. So Joshua was appointed as the one who would lead the people into the promised land. In Deuteronomy 31, I'm going to read verses 1 through 3 again. Then Moses went and spoke these words to all Israel, and he said to them, I am 120 years old today. I can no longer go out and come in. Also, Jehovah has said to me, you shall not cross over the Jordan. Jehovah your God himself crosses over before you. He will destroy these nations from before you, and you shall dispossess them. Joshua himself crosses over before you, just as Jehovah has said. Verse 7, Moses called Joshua and said to him in the sight of all Israel, be strong and of good courage, for you must go with this people to the land which Jehovah has sworn to their fathers to give them, and you shall cause them to inherit it. Verse 14, then Jehovah said to Moses, behold, the days approach when you must die. Call Joshua and present yourselves in the tabernacle of meeting, that you may inaugurate him. So Moses and Joshua went and presented themselves in the tabernacle of meeting. In verse 23, then he inaugurated Joshua the son of Nun and said, be strong and of good courage, for you shall bring the people of Israel into the land of which I swore to give them, and I will be with you. Be strong and of good courage. That's one of my favorite scriptures. It is throughout the Torah, and it was said many times to Joshua, be strong and of good courage. I am with you. I will be with you. Go forward. And Joshua did not hesitate. Now, the book of Joshua, we're just going to scan through that because of time frame here, but I'm going to touch on the highlights of the book of Joshua. Now, it doesn't say for sure, but very likely the book of Joshua was written by Joshua. So let's start out with Joshua chapter 1. We're going to read the first 18 verses, where God commissions Joshua to take the children of Israel into the promised land after wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. Joshua chapter 1. After the death of Moses, the servant of Jehovah, it came to pass that Jehovah spoke to Joshua, the son of Nun, Moses' assistant, saying, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now, therefore, arise, go over this Jordan and all this people to the land which I am giving to them, the children of Israel. Every place that the sole of your foot will tread upon, I have given you, as I have said to Moses. From the wilderness and this Lebanon, as far as the great river, the river Euphrates, all the land of the Hittites, and to the great sea toward the going down of the sun, shall be your territory. No man shall be able to stand before you all the days of your life, as I was with Moses. So I will be with you. I will not leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. The book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate in it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you shall make your way prosperous, and then you shall have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed. For Jehovah, your Elohim, or your God, is with you wherever you go. Then Joshua commanded the officers of the people, saying, Pass through the camp, command the people, saying, Prepare prepare provisions for yourselves, for within 3 days you will cross over the Jordan to go in to possess the land which Jehovah your God is giving you to possess. And to the Reubenites, the Gadites, and half the tribe of Manasseh, Joshua spoke, saying, Remember the word which Moses, the servant of Jehovah, commanded you, saying, Jehovah your God is giving you rest and is giving you this land. Your wives, your little ones, and your livestock shall remain in the land which Moses gave to you on this side of the Jordan. But you shall pass before your brethren armed, all your mighty men of valor, and help them until Jehovah has given your brethren rest, as he has given you. And they also have taken possession of the land which Jehovah your God is giving them. Then you shall return to the land of your possession and enjoy it, which Moses, Jehovah's servant, gave you on the side of the Jordan toward the sunrise. And they answered Joshua, saying, All that you command us we will do, and wherever you send us we will go, just as we heeded Moses in the things, so we will heed you. Only Jehovah your God be with you as he was with Moses. Whoever rebels against your command and does not heed your words in all that you command him shall be put to death. Only be strong and of good courage. Do you notice how often that phrase is in here? Be strong and of good courage. He wanted to make sure Joshua knew that God was with him, and he would move forward, and God would be with his people as long as the people followed Joshua as Joshua followed God into the promised land. Be strong and of good courage. So let's just briefly breeze through the book of Joshua, and I'm going to point out some of the highlights because we don't have time to read all of them. But Joshua is the one who commissioned the 2 spies to go into the land just before they crossed over to Jordan, and they met with the lady Rahab. So there's that incident. Joshua leads the children of Israel across the river Jordan as the water is held back and they cross over dry land. 12 memorial stones are collected from the riverbed and taken to the other side to bear witness. Joshua has all the males circumcised, and they keep the Passover in the land for the first time. The manna ceases, and they eat of the produce of the land. Joshua meets the commander of the army of God. Then, of course, there's the destruction of Jericho, probably the most famous. Joshua fought the battle of Jericho, right? There's a song about that. Joshua begins clearing the land of the inhabitants. You remember the episode where the sun stands still? God fights for Israel. Joshua divides the land among the tribes. Then I want to turn to Joshua 23. For now, Joshua is coming to the end of his life. And this basically is Joshua's farewell address. Joshua 23. I'm going to read the entire chapter. Now it came to pass, a long time after Jehovah had given rest to Israel from all their enemies around about, that Joshua was old, advanced in age. And Joshua called for all Israel, for all their elders, for their heads, for their judges, for their officers, and said to them, I am old, advanced in age. You have seen all that Jehovah your God has done to all these nations because of you. For Jehovah your God is he who has fought for you. See, I have divided to you by lot these nations that remain, to be inherited for your tribes, for the Jordan with all the nations that I have cut off, as far as the great sea westward. And Yehovah your God shall expel them from before you and drive them out of your sight. So you shall possess their land as Yehovah your God has promised you. Therefore, be very courageous to keep and to do all that is written in the book of the law of Moses, lest you turn aside from it to the right hand or to the left. And lest you go among the nations, these who remain among you, you shall not make mention of the name of their gods, nor cause anyone to swear by them. You shall not serve them nor bow down to them, but you shall hold fast to Yehovah your God, as you have done as you have done to this day, where Yehovah has driven out from before you great and strong nations. But as for you, no one has been able to stand against you to this day. 1 man of you shall chase 1,000, for Yehovah your God is he who fights for you. As he has promised you, therefore take diligent heed to yourselves, that you love Yehovah your God. Or else, if indeed you go back and cling to the remnant of these nations, these that remain among you, and make marriages with them, and go to them, and they to you, know for certain that Yehovah your God will no longer drive out these nations from before you, but they shall be snares and traps to you, and scourges on your sides, and thorns in your eyes, until you perish from this good land which Yehovah your God has given you. Behold, this day I am going the way of all the earth, and you know in all your hearts and in all your souls that not one thing has failed of all the good things which Yehovah your God spoke concerning you. All have come to pass for you, and not one word of them has failed. Therefore it shall come to pass that as all the good things have come upon you, which Yehovah your God promised you, so Yehovah will bring upon you all the harmful things until he has destroyed you from the good land which Yehovah your God has given you. When you have transgressed the covenant of Yehovah your God, which he commanded you, and have gone and served other gods, and bowed down to them, then the anger of Yehovah shall burn against you, and you shall perish quickly from the good land which he has given you. So here Joshua, in his final message, basically, to the children of Israel is, you have seen what God has done for you. He has brought you into this land. He has told you to be courageous, to be strong, to go forward. God is with you. He has blessed you. He has given you this good land. He has chased away the inhabitants of the land. But should you turn back? And this basically was a prophecy, because they did turn back. God will then curse you and take all these blessings away. So Joshua was warning them in his final words to be strong, to be courageous, to go forward, to know that God was on their side. He would not forsake them as long as they continued to obey him. In Joshua 24, verse 13, one of my favorite portions of Scripture. Joshua 24, verse 13. I have given you a land for which you did not labor, and cities which you did not build, and you dwell in them. You eat of the vineyards and olive groves which you did not plant. Now therefore, fear Yehovah. Serve him in sincerity and in truth, and put away the gods which your fathers served on the other side of the river and in Egypt. Serve Yehovah. And if it seems evil to you to serve Yehovah, choose for yourselves this day whom you will serve, whether the gods which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you dwell. But as for me in my house, we will serve Yehovah. Very strong statement. And then dropping down to verse 29. Now it came to pass after these things that Joshua, the son of Nun, the servant of Yehovah, died, being 110 years old. Now, a couple of times you've seen in here where Joshua is actually called the servant of the Lord, or the servant of Yehovah. Do you know that that title was only given to 4 men? Only 4. Yeshua, David, Moses, and Joshua. One of 4 men that were called servant of Yehovah. Joshua started out as the assistant to Moses, but ended his life as a servant of Yehovah. So I want to conclude this message today with 2 powerful quotes from the book of Joshua. 2 quotes that inspire me, and I hope that they will inspire you. I've read them already, but I'm going to read them again because I want to leave these quotes in your mind as we go forward. Because we want to be people who are strong and courageous. We want to be the people that will march forward. We're in the wilderness right now, but we're going forward to the promised land as well. So we want those words to be ingrained in our minds. Be strong and courageous. God is with us. He will see us through. All we have to do is obey Him. So the first quote, I'm going to go back to Joshua chapter 1 and verse 9. And this is God speaking to Joshua. Joshua chapter 1, verse 9. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for Yehovah your God is with you wherever you go. And brothers and sisters and seed of Abraham, I want to say to you, okay? I want to say this to you. Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for Yehovah your God is with you wherever you go. Do you believe that? Do you believe that? Be strong and of good courage. Be strong and of good courage. God is with you. We're in this journey. We're going to the promised land. Do not give up. Move forward. Be strong and of good courage. And finally, Joshua chapter 24. I want to leave you with this message as well. In verse 15, I'm just going to read the last sentence of Joshua 24, verse 15. Joshua speaking. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Is that the case for you and your house? For you and your house, will you serve the Lord and no other? Be strong and of good courage. God is with you. Move forward. He's taking us to the promised land. Do not be afraid. Do not be dismayed. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Heavenly Father, I thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Visit us online today. Come and be a part of our fellowship. Here at The Seed, enjoy worshiping and learning God's Word with us.